everyone, welcome back to another video, and today it's going to be a pretty chunky video because I've been meaning to make a whole video about selling art at conventions, art markets, artist alleys, and basically creating a video full of all the tips and advice that I've curated, I guess, from experience, and basically creating a one-stop shop video with hopefully all the information that you might need if selling your artwork at conventions or in person is something that you've been wanting to dabble with. Today's video is brought to you by Milanote. Milanote is a tool for helping creatives organize their projects. It allows you to collect notes, images, videos, task lists, and more all in one place. It's perfect for people who prefer a visual board to organize their thoughts, or even just for creative brainstorming. Think of that Charlie Day meme with his conspiracy wall from that episode of It's Always Sunny, but aesthetic and with fun media. After finishing my latest project, I've been wanting to get into still life painting and explore my color theory knowledge through these paintings, and I've been using Milanote to brainstorm my paintings so that I have a coherent plan for when I get my canvases out. As you can see here, I used some inspiration from these photographs of still life, and I picked out ones that I like the composition, colors, and elements of the most. I like to collect all my inspiration images first using the Milanote web clipper if I'm on desktop, which allows you to save images and links directly from the web onto my board. I put them together and then I like to go into annotations. Some amazing features that I love on Milanote is the color picking tool, which allows me to pull colors directly from inspiration images and create a color palette to work with. I especially want to explore color theory and play around with the fun lighting and shadow colors, so color picking from these images has been a huge help. I also love that you can write directly onto the board. I use the mobile Milanote app on my iPad and love to handwrite my annotations. I can make lines directly to the parts of the image that I want to highlight, and I love the look of handwritten notes on a vision board like this. I even added a link to a video from Alai Ganuza, an artist I have been loving who is amazing with color and color switching for more vibrant looks. This way I can keep referencing back to their tutorials right on my board. And if you're stumped on where to start, that's fine too. Milanote has hundreds of built-in templates available for every type of creative endeavor. And these include things from brainstorms, creative briefs, boards to keep you productive, and task lists. So there's tons to pick from. When you're ready to share your work, you can invite your colleagues and clients to gather important feedback and collaborate with them in real time. Milanote exists to help people do better thinking at the early stages of the creative process. It's a flexible and unstructured workspace that lets ideas grow and evolve in whatever way makes sense to you. And the best part is, Milanote is available for free with no time limit. Sign up using the link in the description and start your next creative project. If you enjoy using Milanote, let me know down below in the comments. Thank you so much for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back into our Artist Alley crash course. So your first question might be, what on earth is an artist alley? And that's a valid question. Basically, artist alleys are sections inside of like expos or conventions or events where artists are allowed to buy their own stall or their own table and sell their work individually. And I've personally posted numerous studio vlogs recounting my experience and my, process of setting up at different conventions over the years. And I've done ones like MCM Comic Con in London and ones in Scotland, ThoughtBubble. There's like so many just across the UK alone. So yeah, there's tons and tons of different varieties and flavors of art markets and artist alleys that you can pick and choose from. And anyone can apply for a table at an artist alley or at an art market, honestly. If you're an artist and you have products that you can sell, it doesn't matter how many, you can apply to one of these. All you have to do really is stay up to date with sort of the application opening date and make sure that you apply within the deadline and shoot your shot, because you'll never know unless you apply, really. So I am actually on a few different email subscription services that let me know when different conventions and different art markets and stuff have their applications open, so that I know exactly when I need to apply to these. And those are super handy, so I would definitely recommend looking up conventions in your area or any events that you are interested in doing and making sure that you are aware of when their application dates are. And like I said, there are hundreds of events just in the UK alone. I'm not very well versed with any outside of the UK at this point in time, but yeah, there are tons and tons of opportunities all year round for you to try your first art market or your first artist alley. Some of the conventions that I recommend personally in the UK are MCM, so either in London or in Birmingham. I know that they do like several Comic Cons across the UK, sometimes twice a year in the same place, so they have tons and tons of opportunities. But these Comic Cons, the MCM ones, are 3 days long, and because they are so popular and such a big company, they do pack quite a lot of people and they are very, very popular. So on the plus side, yes, there's a lot of traffic and a lot of possibility for sales, but at the same time, it is quite scary. So I wouldn't recommend it as a first time artist alley. I would recommend ThoughtBubble. They are an amazing arts and comics focused convention. So the whole event really is just a huge artist alley and a comic market really. So yeah, it's always a great time. It's super focused on art and artists, and it is, yeah, just a really lovely time. I love it every single year. It's amazing. Stepping back into the application process, when you apply, they will probably ask you for a link to your work, which would be expected. And not only just for them to see what kind of work you do in terms of genre, style, medium, but also to see what kind of products you sell. So if you sell more apparel or homeware or more book-based stuff or prints or stationery. So all of this is going to be very important in your application process. So make sure you have a place that showcases your body of work and the things that you would be selling at the convention, whether that be a website, a portfolio, your online shop would be amazing, or even your Instagram if that's where you do most of your sales from at the moment. If all goes well and you do get selected to exhibit your work at one of these events, then first of all, congratulations. But now it is also time to pay for the table, because you do have to pay for these tables, unfortunately. And the prices can vary a lot depending on the event, obviously. So like I mentioned, MCM Comic Con, it's a very big company. It's a very well-known name in the convention sphere. So tables do get a lot more expensive at these specific events. So they can cost you up to 300 or 400 pounds for just a single 6-foot table in the artist alley. So I'm not even talking about exhibitor tables or retail tables, because those can go into the thousands. So just for the artist alley, they can get pricey. So obviously this is completely down to your assessment of it, well, whether you think you'll break even, how much money you're expecting to make. So yeah, you just have to keep breaking even in mind. And if you don't know, breaking even is when you make back the money that you spent on expenses, and anything after breaking even is profit. And so yeah, smaller conventions, the prices for the tables will be cheaper. So again, it's all about doing your research and checking which tables are within your budget at this moment in time and which ones you're comfortable making that financial risk on, because a lot of these conventions are just that. They are a financial risk, especially when it's a new event or a new market that you're not very well versed in. It is always a risk, because you don't know what the foot traffic's going to be like, what the community there is going to be like, if they're going to be interested in your specific type of work, if your work actually appeals to the genre of the convention. So a lot of it is a lot of, risk taking, but with time you do learn which conventions work best for you and which conventions you do the best at. For example, 2 years ago, I had an experience at a convention that did not go very well. I posted a studio vlog about it, about what went wrong, why I won't be going back to that one. But yeah, I didn't even break even at that event. So, it was a bummer, but now I know. So, and like I mentioned, over the years, I've now done like over 10 to 20 like artist alleys and conventions and art markets. So I picked up a few tips and advice that I think could be beneficial to anyone who's interested in starting this but doesn't know where to start. And if you watching this are an artist who has done art markets or has sold their work at artist alleys, and you have any tips and advice that I have missed, please make sure to write them down in the comments, because the more the better, obviously. Yeah, let's all share our tips in the community. So next up, you got to start thinking about what you need to prepare and what you need to pack. And it can be a very overwhelming task to even figure out where to start. So I'm hoping that I can help you out a little bit in that department. So I personally have OCD, so I am a huge fan of lists. Like, I list everything. I make multiple lists for different things. I color code my lists. And of course, with most things in life, after doing a few different events like this, you will have a more concise understanding of what things you should take, what things aren't worth taking, and what things went well, what didn't, and you'll just basically start creating a reusable list that you can take to different events. So let's start off with stock items. Obviously, as you might have guessed, the kind of event you're going to is going to kind of dictate what kind of work you're taking. So if you are doing something more of an art market or ThoughtBubble, for example, which is an arts and comics specific convention, I tend to take more of my original artwork and more of my books and things like that. And if I'm doing a comic convention, I will take more fan arty things and, things that people can identify as something that they know, and they're like, ooh, I know this character, I would like to buy this print. Speaking of fan art, I am going to get into that closer to the end of the video, do not worry, but I'll get back into that. And like I said, experience will be your best advisor in this, because you will see which products and which items worked best at which conventions and which events, and so you know later on which ones to take to each. I also highly recommend not to overpack. It can be very tempting to take as much stock as possible to each convention and each event, because you're worried that you'll run out, and then immediately that translates into a loss in sales. But you really don't want to break your entire body taking just as much stuff as possible and then having to bring almost all that stuff back. And it's also a really good sign when you have something that's been sold out at your table, because it sort of generates that was a very wanted product, and you can then sort of plug your online business where people can buy that product in their own time. But the general rule of thumb for me specifically is variety is best, and I will take variety in products over stock. So the more variety in products you take, the less stock of each product you should take. I hope that makes sense. So for example, if you're taking 5 different types of prints and you take 30 or 40 of each, then if you take 10 or 20 different types of prints, I would then take about 10 or 20 of each. Now for the actual table itself and setup, because this is another thing that you have to think about when you set up your stall. So some must-have items that I have listed are a padlock, a card reader, business cards, a price list, some change, a high-vis vest, and a power bank. These are my go-to must-haves when you're going to one of these conventions. Besides, obviously, the other stuff that you need to display your items, these are some important bits. So the way that I set up my table is I use these metal grid square things that you can construct to your liking. They're very cheap and very versatile, and you can construct whatever thing you want to hang up your artwork on. If you have prints and books to display, you might want to think about taking a book display. So something that you can display the books at a slant so that people can see them, maybe pick them up and flip through. If you're using something like the grids that I showed you, maybe getting some little bulldog clips or some hangers. Those are also really, really good for displaying keychains, prints, sticker packs, anything that can be hung on your grids is a great way to display things. And finally, a tablecloth can be really helpful in just keeping the aesthetic of your body of work together. So a lot of conventions and art markets might provide you with just a standard black cloth to cover your table with, but I personally don't use them. And you don't need to buy anything fancy, by the way. I have a really stretchy one that I bought off Amazon that is made for convention tables. I'll of course list everything that I mentioned down there in the description box, but you can literally just go to a fabric store, buy just a bunch of fabric of a color you like and use that. You can use bed sheets if you want. It really is up to you. It doesn't exactly matter. But if you are wanting to create a cohesive look on your table and you want the tablecloth to match that, color story, then it can always help because it makes everything look really put together. And yeah, just like the tablecloth, you can actually repurpose a lot of things that you already have to showcase your artwork at these events. Some extra bits that I thought I'd mention that you could probably think of taking or making is individual price tags for your items. Obviously, having a price list is very important, but sometimes people don't notice the price list and sometimes it gets a bit lost within everything on your table. So having individual price tags like stickers or just something you can stick on with some tape onto each individual item is incredibly helpful. It will save you a lot of time having to say or memorize all the prices for different products, and it's just going to make transactions a lot smoother. I also highly recommend making or printing out a little QR code. I somehow every time run out of business cards, and I keep taking more and more business cards every time I go to an event. So having a QR code that you can have on your table that people can scan with their phone and it'll take them to whatever website, Instagram, etc. will make things just a lot better, especially if you run out of business cards. And similarly, in the same vein, I would also recommend making like a little be right back sign. Obviously, you can just make one on the fly, like writing it on a piece of paper and putting it on your table. But I like to have one just for like bathroom breaks or water breaks or food breaks, and just saying, hey, I'll be back at this time, or I'll be back in 15 minutes, just so people know that you haven't disappeared and they can circle back to your table later. Like I mentioned before, taking cash, the best way to keep that safe is with a bum bag or a little like box that you can keep on your person. I personally like a bum bag. It makes it easier to separate the notes from the coins, and also I can keep it on my person and make sure that it's safe. And speaking of book and print stands, like I mentioned, I'm going to show you later on when I'm setting up my table which one that I use. Again, the link to the Etsy distributor that I got this one from will be in the description box. But getting a book stand that can be flat packed or, you know, collapsible is going to make your life a lot easier when traveling. So I have one that's made of wood that actually like deconstructs down into like a flat bit of wood, and it is a lifesaver. I've gone through like 4 different types of book stands and book displays, and this is definitely the best one that I found that suits my travel needs the best. And you can make your own as well. I tried making my own book display stand one time, and unfortunately I used like foam boards, which didn't make it very durable, so it suited me for a whole convention, but it did break on the way back. So if you have any means of like using wood or like some more durable cardboard or something, you can try making your own. There are some templates online that you can use. I'll leave in the description the one that I use to try and make my own. So yeah, you can literally make everything for your table, which is awesome. And finally, one of the best ways that I found to transport all of my prints and keep them organized at events is actually using one of these like fold out folders. So these have been, this one specifically has been a life changer for me, because not only does it keep all my prints safe, but it also keeps them incredibly organized. It also flat packs all of your prints in a very nice, neat way. So once it comes to time to pack your suitcase or bags or wherever you're taking, here is how I actually pack everything into my one suitcase to take to conventions and my full packing list. So I have this IKEA bag that has basically all of my convention stuff. It's got my high-vis vest, my decor stuff for my table. So I sort through that first and see what I'm taking. So I start off by packing my tablecloth, my little vines that I use to decorate my table, that little wooden book stand. Of course, I also take these little wire grids for actually setting up my table. And I usually take 23 of the metal square grids and also enough feet attachments to put them together, as well as some bulldog clips like this to put up my prints and any little things up on the grids, as well as these little hooks and these little business card holders. As you can see, they look really cute. I only take 2 of these because for my more like heavy duty stuff, I take these print stands or book stands, and they're really, really nice and sturdy, but they also kind of all fit together really nicely. Of course, can't forget my card reader. I have mine from SumUp and it fits in this little box. I also take an A4 display of all of my enamel pins with the prices of each one individually, as well as some paper bags and some plastic wallets for prints and bigger paper bags as well. Of course, I also have to take lots of business cards. I then take this really handy box that comes with this like divider separator, and I use this to display all of my individual stickers. I think it's called like a craft box organizer or something online. And speaking of boxes, I also take these tiny little baskets that can be flat packed very easily, and I usually take 2 of these. So yeah, as you can see here, I'm just starting to pack my actual stock since I've packed all of the stuff that goes towards my table. I usually pack all of my washi tapes in one bag. Pencil cases, I usually take 10 of each design. Then I take mystery packs. I usually take 40 of those, 30 to 40 enamel pins of each design. I usually take 8 to 10 books of each book that I have, normally no more than 10. And then I take 30 to 40 keychain charms of each design, as well as 20 to 30 every sticker pack. For my calendars, this was the first convention I did that I took my calendars with me, and I took about 10 to 20. And then for art prints, as you can see here, I'm using that expandable folder that I mentioned, and I usually take about 10 to 15 different art prints and about 20 to 30 stock of each. Some other bits that I didn't really showcase here, but that I also pack into my bag is my sticker display boards, usually a bum bag and some cash. I usually also take pen, tape, and scissors with me always, just in case of emergency. Of course, all the price tags and the sold out tags and the be right back sign, as well as my price list that I showed you all before, are all also in that folder. So now that you're all packed up and set and ready to go and you get to the convention center, it's time to set up your table. Setting up my table is my favorite part of this entire experience. It is just so fun building something and then seeing like your best body of work like all displayed on one table. It is incredibly satisfying. And my table has looked very different along the years. Obviously, with every convention, you learn something new or you see something new at someone else's table that you would like to try out on your table at the next convention. So the way that my table is set up now, I think is like peak. Like this is my favorite, like this is how I've been doing it for the past 3 or 4 conventions. Everyone sets up their table in different ways. They set it obviously depending on the products that you are showcasing. Your table is gonna need to look a different way or is gonna need to have different display options. So keep that in mind, obviously. And on top of that, you can see that over the years, I have been implementing more and more of my branding and my sort of like color story into my table and sort of creating this overarching like explosion of like pipa core into my table. Over the years, I've found more things and I'm like, oh, that'd be really cute on my convention table, or this would go really well. It just comes with time and having more money to invest into things like this. So once you get to the actual convention, here is how I set up my table from start to finish. First things first, when you get to convention centers, usually number 1 is putting on your high-vis vest and serve, obviously. Yeah, you're usually not allowed to even start setting up or get into the convention center without a high-vis vest. So next up, I put down my tablecloth and secure it nicely on the legs. And then it's time to start setting up my grids. I even made a little graphic for you guys so you can see what my like setup design is and how I set up my grids every single time. And you can use that for your own setups if you like. Here's a little graphic that I mentioned. It shows you like the 3 or 4 different sections that I set up and then I kind of connect them all. This basically the sketch is how I always aim to set up my table these days. It has a little arch over where I sit so I can see and chat to people and that come over to my table, and it allows me to put prints on top so that people can see them from afar as well. I like to set up my book display up next once my grid display is sturdy, and honestly, it takes me like a few seconds to get this thing set up. I got it from Etsy. I will link down in the description box the seller I got this from. It is so handy and incredibly sturdy and beautiful as well. I love this shade of wood. So then I start hanging things up. Now that all of my sturdier bits are set up, I can start actually putting things up. So I start putting these hooks up on my grid and start setting up my acrylic charms and my sticker packs. So basically anything that's on hooks or on clips or anything that needs attaching to the grid walls is usually step number 5. And this way I can then see sort of where my empty spots are and can make sure that the things that need to be hung up have enough space to hang. And then I'll fill in the rest of the empty spots with, prints and things like that. So then I get out my crates and I open them up and put my mystery packs and my washi tapes in them. And then I also take out my little print displayers, and this is where I'll display my sticker boards. So yeah, I start setting those up and then start putting all of my books, my calendar, and any other stuff on my wooden book display over here. And of course, I display my little pencil cases on those little hooks as well. And then finally, just for the table here, I start setting up all of my individual stickers on that little organizer that I showed you earlier. This is so handy. It has completely changed the game for me in terms of like showcasing all of my individual stickers. It looks so pretty, so organized, and it's really easy for people to flip through them and see all the designs at one glance. So once I'm happy with all of that, it's time to start setting up the prints. And this usually, you know, it's a bit finicky even after doing it so many times, but once you figure out sort of where you want them all to be, if you want to organize them by theme or by color, I put them up using those hooks. I then put up my price list as well as my business cards and my little QR code. And then from the back here, a little behind the scenes, I like to keep in that little box that I made over there on the right. That's where I usually keep all of my bags and my Be Right Back sign and basically anything that doesn't need to be seen. And then finally here for the table, I'm just using those really cute little wisteria fake plants and putting them all around my table over at the top. Again, this is incredibly optional, obviously, but I really like to have a sort of theme and aesthetic that goes all throughout my table. And this little wisteria fake plant situation always really makes the table look really finished to me. And again, it's just a really nice thing that calls people over to your table and sets you apart from other creators in the artist alley. Finally, the last step is to set up my banner. I've actually decided to step away from using a vertical banner recently. I still used this last year when I filmed this video, but I'm thinking of getting a sort of a runner on the front part of my table instead for future conventions, just because sometimes people don't see behind me when I'm sitting down and the banner doesn't really work. But yeah. This is my table fully set up. This is how it looks. I obviously then put down all of my price tags next to all of the different items, and this is what it looks like. The whole process usually takes me about 2 hours, I think. Takedown usually takes me like 30 to 40 minutes, if that. But yeah, this is sort of my process now, and I kind of get it done pretty speedily by myself.
So now I wanted to get into some more specific advice, especially for people with anxiety or like neurodivergent people. And if that's something you don't struggle with, you can obviously skip this chapter, but I think it's a very important thing to discuss. So some of you might know this, some of you might not, but I suffer from extreme anxiety. I have OCD and I suffer from a lot of panic attacks, especially around crowds. So these events can be a very big struggle if you're someone who struggles with things like that. And I have had some very unfortunate experiences at some of these events due to my own, personal struggles with mental health. So here are some tips that I have curated that I have found have helped me a lot to keep my mental health at bay and keeping myself stable throughout a very intense event like this. Because you might think it's super easy and chill, but actually when you are being bombarded with about 25,000 people at some of these conventions in one day, it gets extremely loud in there, and it is so overstimulating and so overwhelming, and you kind of have to be in customer service mode the whole time, and some of those days are long. So here are some tips and tricks that I have learned over the years for some of my anxious folks out there. So number one is just to ask ahead of time, maybe on setup day, so on the day where only the staff is there and you, the artist, and ask someone who works at the venue for any quiet spots or reset rooms that they have available at the venue. A lot of big conventions will have something like a reset room or a quiet room with like sensory toys, and like it's padded, and it's just basically a reset room specifically designed for people with anxiety, neurodivergency, and stuff like that. So you can always find a room like that if you feel like you are having a particularly bad time. Those are open for everyone, for the public.
the whole event. But there will also be some quiet spots at any convention, and finding those ahead of time can be very easy for your mental health, to just know that if you need a breather, you can just go to this corner in the convention center or at the venue that you can just take a breath. Even if that's having to go outside, take a few breaths and then coming back in, that's also absolutely fine. Another good tip that I have is using one of those sensory earplugs. I got these because my partner uses them for work a lot, and I actually got a pair for myself for doing these conventions, and it has been a game changer. So I'll link the ones that I have in the description, but I'll also link a different pair that a friend of mine has that are also really good. But what these earplugs do basically is that they just filter out specific frequencies and specific noises within your environment that can be triggering or that can be overstimulating. So they don't block out noise. You can still hear everyone, you can still talk to people, but they do reduce the amount of overstimulation. I don't know the science of this very well, but if you do your research, you might find what you need. But I personally, in my experience, have found them game changing. I never go to a convention without them. I even use them in my day-to-day sometimes if I'm feeling specifically overstimulated. So I definitely recommend getting something like this, especially if you are someone who struggles with auditory or sensory sensitivities. They're amazing. And overall, it is just really important to take breaks. I cannot express how important it is to take frequent breaks throughout the day. I know that I am still struggling to do that at a lot of these events, because in my head, if I take even a 5-minute break, the whole time my brain's just going, that's sales you're missing out on. But it really isn't, because you need to prioritize yourself, your sanity, your mental health, so that you can actually be present at your table when you are there. Because the last thing you want is to burn out on the first day or within the first hour of the convention and then just be dreading the whole rest of the day. So make sure to take care of yourself, do some stretches, go for breaks, have a lot of water, and make sure to snack, because these events, especially big ones, are a lot more physically and mentally taxing than they seem to be until you are there. So take care of yourself. So at the convention itself, food will always be super expensive at conventions, especially big ones like the one in London at Excel. I recommend either eating at one of the stalls by the small business caterers working the event, or going to a shop the night or morning before and bringing food or packed lunch for the day. Also bring lots of snacks, because you will get peckish and your energy gets drained very easily at events like this. Some of the convention artist alleys I've done have refillable water spots, but these can get huge queues. So make sure to bring lots of water or a huge water bottle to keep refilled, so you don't need to keep going for refills often. So now I wanted to get into the fan art controversies and specifically things to avoid doing if you do get into any of these events. So, okay, we all know that fan art is a bit of a controversial topic. It has always been a controversial topic, and it especially is when you're selling that artwork, especially at conventions and in person. Not only is it confusing to find out if you are even allowed to sell fan art, or even if it's just socially acceptable to do so. So I'm speaking explicitly from my experience, but most/all conventions, especially big comic conventions, they all say specifically in their application process that they don't condone or they don't authorize people to sell fan art. But if I'm entirely honest, that's just to cover their own butts, because if you have gone to any convention and you've wandered into Artist Alley, you will see that about I'd say 60 to 70% of the art being displayed there is fan art in some way or another. So it's just a legal forethought. So if someone gets in trouble for selling fan art, they can claim plausible deniability. Some of them even go as far as saying that if you get caught selling someone else's IP, intellectual property, that you will be asked to take it down. And while yes, that is completely something that could happen, someone could tell you to take something down, that has never happened to me or anyone ever at any convention that I've been at. There are staff and people who work for the convention company walking around the Artist Alley at all times, and they even come over and say, oh my god, I love that show, I love that piece of fan art that you've done. So in my experience, they really don't care. I would love to hear if anyone has had a negative experience with selling fan art at any event. Please let me know down in the comments, because personally, for me, I stress about it at every convention. I freak out when I take fan art because I'm like, like I'm gonna get blacklisted, but it never happens. Nothing ever happens. It's always been fine. So I would really love to hear if anyone has actually had a negative experience with that. And the thing is, yes, I do see 80% of artist alleys and events and stuff like that selling fan art, but that's because fan art sells. And you go to these events trying to make a living, trying to break even, hopefully trying to make profit. And if you know that some of your artwork, even though it is based on some intellectual IP that isn't yours, will sell, and it's still your artwork, so it is still artwork that you created, just not your characters, I personally don't have any like qualms with that. I find that fine. I do that. But again, like I said, I struggle from anxiety, so I always try to make sure that my table is at least 60 to 70% my own original artwork, and then the rest can be fan art based stuff. So things that aren't my intellectual IP, but I've created artwork based on someone's characters. So I like to make sure that, you know, if in the event that someone tells me to take down my fan art, that I still have enough product on my table that I can make sales for the rest of the weekend. So like I said, this is my own personal opinion. Different people will have different opinions on it. And of course, different production companies will have different policies on this that you can actually look up. I know that the creators of Genshin Impact, for example, have put out multiple statements saying that they really don't mind and even love it when people do fan art and sell fan art of their characters and their IP. So that is why you see so much Genshin Impact stuff at conventions and art markets and things like that, because people know for a fact that they are allowed to sell stuff based on Genshin Impact, and they will do it. And also Genshin Impact is really pretty, so why not, right? But that's just one example. There are different production companies out there who will allow people to, you know, make fan art and sell fan art of their stuff, and some that are a lot more against it. But yeah, regarding the Genshin Impact stuff, I saw a very interesting reel from Magical Maidens, who is someone who is at like every convention ever and every art market. And so I'll link the reel that I saw down in the description. But yeah, interesting stuff. In conclusion, it's all a bit of a gray area still, fan art and selling fan art. So it really is down to your personal comfort in selling fan art, whether you even do fan art. I don't know. It's just down to whether or not you want to take that risk, whether or not you feel comfortable doing that. And now just getting into some general bits of advice of things that I recommend you don't do at these events. So obviously every event will give you a list of things that you shouldn't do or you should avoid doing. So number one, don't be disruptive. Obviously this one goes without saying, but just trying not to be a nuisance to your table neighbors and anyone around you that's also there just trying to make a living. Number two is try not to leave your things there overnight. I said this previously, but I try not to leave any valuables overnight, only my stock in my suitcase, which I lock up with a padlock. So anything, money, electronics, anything I take with me to wherever I'm staying overnight always. And finally, just try not to obsess too much on sales and your revenue. I know it's very easy to get in that mindset of I need to make all my money back, I need to make as many sales as possible, I can't even miss out on one. But just try to have fun, because it is an enjoyable experience at the end of the day, or it should be. So try to enjoy it, just have fun conversations with people if you can, and try to make friends if you can too in the artist alley. Try not to bum yourself out about sales, because there will be bad events, there will be good events, so try not to focus too much on that. Easier said than done, but just thought I'd mention it. And that brings us to the end of this video. Sorry it's been a really long one, but again, I didn't want to miss out on anything that could be possibly important. And again, if you are an artist and you think that I've missed something in this video, do not forget to write that down in the comments. Let's all share our experiences and our tips and tricks. And again, if I did miss something, or if you have any more specific questions, please let me know down in the comments, because I am very happy to do a Q&A just fully about artist alleys. And if you're still here and you're still watching, thank you so much. I hope this video was helpful, and hopefully it has inspired you to try selling your artwork in person this year. Go you! Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in my next video, or maybe at an art market, or at an artist alley. Who knows? Bye-bye!